Okay, so we're going to start looking at scraping data from the web using Workbench, and we're going to look at this in two ways. So sometimes we have an HTML page, right, a web page, and it has a table on it. Okay, so I know that it's a table because it has rows and it has columns, and if I look at the HTML behind this, so an easy way, if you're in either Firefox or Chrome, I just go inspect element, and if you've taken our web development classes, you'll recognize this, but I can see this is a table, okay? It's a table right here. So this makes it easier for us to scrape the data because what we want on the other end is tabular data. So in Workbench, I'm going to create a workflow, and I'm going to say that I am scraping a table, okay? So Workbench has this built in, and what I do is copy the URL for the page, and then it wants to know where on the page the table is, okay? So the easiest way to find this is just scrape it, and let's see what the first table on the page is. Okay, so that's not the one I want, so let's see if it's the second one. All right, so this looks better. I want to check and make sure that my header row is right, so this looks good. Like always, I'll want to check my my columns. So here, population, this is a text column right now. I'd want to change that to a number column, right, like this. But otherwise, that worked really easily, and I can now do things with this. All right, so the second way that we want to scrape data is if we have something like this. So here is data that can become structured data. So this is the edit history for Greg Abbott's Wikipedia page. Okay, so these are all the edits, and there are things that could be tabular data, right? This column or this row has a time, it has who made the change, and they have the change. Okay, so this person removed this category and did this. Okay, this person did this. So I could turn this into a table, but if I look at it, I can see that this is not a table. Okay, so again, if you've taken our web development classes, this is an unordered list, and the HTML scraper isn't going to work on it. So what I'm going to do is just get rid of this really quick, and I'm going to use the HTML scraper. So what the HTML scraper is going to do is just pull all the HTML off of this page. Okay, so I'm going to scrape here. And then what we're going to have to do is give it a little bit more information about how to go into that HTML and pull out the information we want. So we're going to add a step here, and we're going to add HTML to table as our step. Okay, when you have this step, it is assuming that you have used this HTML scraper because it's going to be looking for a column that says HTML. Okay, so this column right here has the entire web page of HTML in it, and this is going to act on this, and we don't have to tell it to. Okay, so HTML to table is going to use what are called XPath selectors. If you know CSS, this is kind of like CSS selector. It's just a way of us saying, okay, go to the second unordered list on the page and do this with each thing. Okay, so we can get the XPath selectors from the inspector here. So again, we're in Chrome or we're in Firefox. I'm going to right click on the thing that I want to look at, and I'm going to choose inspect. It's going to pull up the HTML here. Now, you don't necessarily need to know HTML. It's going to help you to know a little bit, so that's going to be a good skill overlap if you've taken our other classes. But I can mouse over some stuff here until I get to the thing that I want highlighted over here. Okay, so that's highlighted, and now I'm going to right click here, and I'm going to copy XPath. Okay, and I'm going to come back to Workbench, and I'm going to paste this here. All right, so this is what XPath looks like, and this is like an address for that one thing. And that's good, except for we don't want just this date, we want all the dates, right? And if we look at our XPath again, the important part is these numbers in brackets. So this bracket 1 right here says the first LI. So list item is LI. So this is a list, and it's saying, okay, give me the first one. And we don't want the first one, we want all of them. So all we're going to do is delete that bracket 1, and let's make a column called date, and let's see if this works. HTML scrapers can be a little buggy, and I've had a little bit of bugginess with Workbench using this. If this just hangs forever or doesn't do what you're expecting it to do, you might have to refresh, log out, log back in, that kind of stuff. But here we're good. So now we have a list of several hundred times that the Wikipedia page was edited. But what we really want is a full table, right? So when we're making a table here, we can just add another column, and we'll add another XPath selector. So we'll get the username now. I'm going to inspect that. I'm going to run around until I find what I want. So I'm going to get this. I'm going to copy the XPath. I'm going to come back, paste it in, and then instead of the first LI, I'm going to take all the LIs. And this is stuff you might just have to play with if you don't know a lot of HTML. So I'm going to call this user, and then let's get the revision really quickly. So let's see, I know this is definitely what changed. So comment without parentheses, that seems like what I want. So I'll get the XPath for this. And you can't hurt anything here, so it's fine to just play around until you find what you need. And again, I want all the LIs, and I'm going to call this revision, and we will cross our fingers and hope that we have a nice table. Yep. All right. So now we have what everyone has done, and this could potentially be really interesting information. For example, what is Philip Cross doing editing so much? Has Philip Cross edited in the past? These are all interesting questions we might ask. All right, so that is the basic way that we're going to do scraping in Workbench. So we've got two things. We either get it directly from an HTML table, or we get HTML that's not in a table and then use the HTML to table workflow step. And again, I would definitely want to add notes to all of these things and say what I'm doing right here. Another really nice thing is I can create alerts on all of these. So I can turn this on and get an email when this URL changes. So if you wanted to keep an eye on who's editing Greg Abbott's Wikipedia page, you can do that. So you could change this update to automatically and say, I want you to check every day, email me if it changes. And that could be really useful as a journalist. The other thing that I want to do in this lesson is start talking about tabs. So workflow, you can have separate tabs. So let's say this is our, we're working on a project, and let's say this is Abbott, I don't know if that's one or two T's. Two T's. All right, so this is my Greg Abbott revision history tab, and I could add another tab here and have a totally new data workflow in this one, so something related to this project. And I just mentioned that here because that's how we're going to have you turn in your exercises for this one, is with multiple tabs